Welcome back everybody. Well, time for the second episode review of the day with Datalore. On the way to Starbase Armus 9 for computer maintenance, the Enterprise arrives at the planet Omicron Theta, the site of a vanished colony where the starship Tripoli originally found the android Data. An away team travels to the surface and finds that what had been farmland is now barren, with no trace of life in the soil. The team also finds a lab, which they discover is where Dr. Noonien Sun, a formerly permanent but now discredited robotics designer, built Data. The team also find a disassembled android nearly identical to Data and return with it to the ship. Oh, bad idea. As the course of the starbase is resumed, the crew reassemble and reactivate Data's brother, also played by Brent Spiner, in sickbay. He refers to himself as Lore, explains that Data was built first and he himself is a more perfect model. He feigns naivete to the crew, but shows signs of being more intelligent than he is letting on. Later, in private, he tells Data that they were actually created in the opposite order, as the colonist became envious of his own perfection. He also explains that a crystalline space entity capable of stripping away all life force from the world was responsible for the colony's demise. Well, that sucks. Lore then incapacitates Data, revealing that he plans to offer the ship's crew to the entity. Again with entity stuff. Why? When a signal transmission is detected from Data's quarters, Wesley arrives to investigate. He finds Lore, now impersonating Data, who explains that he had to incapacitate his brother after being attacked. Wesley is doubtful, but pretends to accept the explanation. See, this is why you should always listen to Wesley, people. Soon after, the same crystalline entity that had attacked the colony approaches the ship. Lore, still pretending to be Data, enters the bridge as the object hovers before the Enterprise and explains that he incapacitated his brother by turning him off, causing Dr. Beverly Crusher to be suspicious, since Data had previously treated the existence of such a feature as a closely guarded secret. Lore then explains that he can communicate with the crystalline entity and suggests to Captain Jean-Luc Picard that he should show a demonstration of force by beaming an object toward the entity and then destroying it with the ship's phasers. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen there, Buckaroo. Lore's attempts to imitate Data are imperfect, though, arousing Picard's suspicion, especially when Lore does not recognize Picard's usual command to make it so. Haha! Although Picard sends a security detachment to tail him, Lore overpowers Lieutenant Worf and evades pursuit. Meanwhile, the suspicious Dr. Crusher and her son, Wesley, reactivate the unconscious Data, and the three of them race to the cargo hold to find Lore plotting with the entity to defeat the Enterprise. When Lore discovers them, he threatens Wesley with a phaser and orders Dr. Crusher to leave. Data quickly rushes Lore and a brawl ensues. Data manages to knock Lore onto the transporter platform, and Wesley activates it, beaming Lore into space. Haha! With its conspirators are no longer aboard, the crystalline entity departs, and the Enterprise resumes its journey to the starbase. Phew! Yeah, but I take it this is not the last we're going to be seeing of Lore. Anyway, let's look at some production notes here. The original story for this episode featured a non-lookalike female android who was intended to be a love interest for Data. Aww. The new android was intended to have been created as something that could be deployed into dangerous or hazardous situations. Described in the premise as something along the lines of a female android version of Red Air, the firefighter. The evil twin story was suggested by Brent Spiner, instead, and was originally developed to include the creation of Data by an alien race. This was instead dropped and Dr. Noonien Sung was introduced. Sung was named by Gene Roddenberry after his Second World War friend, Kim Noonien Singh, who the character Khan Noonien Singh was also named after. It will be Roddenberry's final script credit on the Star Trek series. The script made mention of Isaac Asimov and the laws of robotics, something which had been suggested should be included at some point in the show as a spoken credit in a memo dated October 28, 1986, from executive producer Bob Justman. The episode suffered delays during pre-production caused by rewrites to the script, resulting in the script being switched with The Big Goodbye, which meant that director Joseph L. Scanlon went on to direct that episode instead. Rob Bowman, who had previously been told by Justman that he was going to direct The Big Goodbye after his work on Too Short a Season, was instead assigned to direct Datalore. Sheesh. He took the new episode on as a challenge, and the belief that the producers didn't think the episode would work well, which caused him to become determined to put out a good episode. He had numerous discussions with Brent Spiner, Justman, and Rick Berman on aspects of the episode, and the technical requirements and effects required an additional day of filming. Bowman credited Spiner for making the episode work, giving one example, quote, He did the one scene in his own office with Brent sitting down and Lore discussing what it's like to be human. He did one side, we shot through a double, then turned around, read it the other way and shot the other half of it. Those two characters in those scenes are different people. He really painted those characters differently. Edits were still being made to the script during filming, as the writers wanted to introduce a new element to Data, in order to further distinguish him from Lore, and an ability to use contractions. Data had used contractions during earlier episodes, and Spiner refused to shoot the scene until a final decision was reached. Production stopped while there was a meeting on this subject between Gene Roddenberry, the producers, and the writers, in the middle of the bridge set. The music for the episode was composed by Ron Jones, and was later released on the second disc of the album Star Trek The Next Generation, The Ron Jones Project. For this episode, Jones created a 6-note theme to represent Lore. The crystalline entity was given a theme of 3 notes which played for two pieces entitled Crystal Entity and Crystal Attacks. The music played when the way to explore Omicron Theta was similar to that created by Jerry Goldsmith for the 1979 film Alien. Jones acknowledged that link, saying that, quote, I was playing with this stuff like Jerry's music at the beginning of Alien. Bowman was like our Ridley Scott. He was like Ridley Scott Jr., and I was Jerry Goldsmith Jr. Haha. Executive producer Maurice Hurley was pleased with the outcome of the episode, saying, quote, The sets, the design of it, and the look of that show was brilliant. I thought that might have been the best-looking show of the first season. However, he felt that the characterizations weren't quite right. This was the same opinion that was put forward by actor Brent Spiner, who portrayed both Data and Lore, but thought that Data's actions were not aligned with his expectations of the character. This episode was the second and last appearance of Biff Yeager as Chief Engineer Argyle. He was the only one of the chief engineers introduced during the first season to appear twice, with Geordi LaForge gaining the role in Season 2. Will Wheaton later recalled that the stand-in actor who used in this episode really irritated Spiner, and was never used again. He described the stand-in as looking like, quote, a breakdancer doing the robot, whenever he had to portray Data or Lore, and said that, quote, I think the guy was really into playing an android, and his enthusiasm got cranked up to 11, but by the end of the week, pretty much everyone wanted to deactivate him and sell him to the nearest Jawa. Aha! Star Wars references. The events of the episode will be followed up in later seasons, with the crystalline entity returning in the 5th season episode Silicon Avatar. Brent Spiner reprised the role of Lore in the episodes Brothers and Descent. Ooh, Nelly, that's kind of interesting. So, overall, a pretty darn good episode, and hey, Lore is pretty one bad guy, or android, or something like that. So, overall, I give Datalore 5 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me soon as we take a trip to Angel 1. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.